Hi everybody, and welcome to the GHC Faculty Lounge. I am Travice Baldwin-Obosh, your host, and I'm here today with Russell Cook, who is a professor of art at Georgia Highlands College. Welcome, Russell. We're thankful that you're here. So Russell is a professor of art here at Georgia Highlands College, and so one of the first things I think our audience would want to know is, how did you end up in Rome, Georgia, teaching at Georgia Highlands College?
Well, I'm originally from Fairmount, Georgia, so in Gordon County, about an hour away. And Rome is a city that I knew to have things to do, places to play as a musician. There are enough people here that I like to hang out with at any one time. And it's not too big a city, so I like the place a lot. And when a position opened up at GHC, I applied and got it. You know,
Excellent. And so how long have you been here at Highlands?
About 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it, yeah.
So you mentioned you're a musician. So talk to us a little bit about what you do in the community.
Okay. My wife runs Kingfisher Art Co., which is a gallery in town. We have shows there. It's really her gallery, and she does all that. I move things around. People give me more credit than I deserve for that. But we have shows there, mainly out-of-town bands, bands that you ordinarily would not see, you know, because they're passing through or would not come this way if we didn't have something lined up for them. Traditional music, mostly, and then of course art shows and other events, you know, event rentals and that sort of thing.
Do you have anything going on at the gallery now?
We do. I have a solo show, which is my first in a while, that is up through the end of April. So it is kind of unusually some stuff that goes back 25 years and some stuff that's very recent. So it kind of runs the gamut. And I think of it as my wife Cameron's show of my work. Since she put it together, she arranged it, curated the whole thing. So it's interesting for me to see because she sees it with a different lens than I do. So.
But it's a compilation of not only your work, but also what she does.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That perfect marriage. I love that.
Exactly. And a lot of the things that she picked, I would not have picked, but I like them when I see them up on the wall, you know. Yeah.
All right, you said that runs through the end of the month, is that correct?
Through the 29th.
Through the 29th.
Yeah, of April.
Wonderful. And any upcoming events happening at Kingfisher?
On the 28th of April, Maya DeVitri is playing. She's a Nashville-based singer-songwriter, Nashville-based because everybody there is from somewhere else. And she's bringing a band that is similarly from all over the place, but based in Nashville. So I'm really looking forward to that. She tours nationally, plays all over the place. So it ought to be a really good show.
Wonderful. You guys definitely, if you're in Rome or near Rome, definitely check that out. So transitioning a little bit back to the work that you do here at Highlands. Part of your job as an art professor is to instill creativity. How have you been able to see some of the students' work and how it's contributed to our community here in Rome?
Well, we had at the gallery this past year a student art show, which was great for them, and they got to see sort of how that goes together. The actual putting of the show together is a very different thing than making the artwork. You know, totally different set of obligations, responsibilities, parameters, all of that. So that was good for the students, I think, and also the community got to see what they do. As far as that goes. Also, we're working on a mural project that's just getting off the ground in Bartow County. The first mural is in the library, I believe, in Cartersville. So I have not seen the design. I got an email about it today. But there's a mural artist who will be working with the students and helping to kind of beautify the library. And then hopefully we can kind of expand on that as well.
Yeah. That's an excellent opportunity for students to also see their work on display and see the contribution that it makes to the college that they're attending, but ultimately the community as well. So you've been a professor for 15 years. What would you say has been the largest shift as far as how art, design, and culture intersect?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably the digital world, I guess, because it's changing so constantly. It's been a little bit longer than 15 years, but when I graduated University of Georgia in 2000, they had to get one of my classmates to make a website for the art school because nobody that worked there knew how to do it. You know, it's not a skill set they had needed in the past. Similarly, when I graduated that year, there were 3 professors who retired that had been there since 1970. So I kind of learned a painting approach from them that's still valid, but now art goes in so many different directions, and I think the digital world has a lot to do with that. Because if you want to know what's going on in Rio de Janeiro or Phoenix or anywhere, you can look it up. It's there at your fingertips. So we are more connected in that way to everything else that's going on, and that's a really good thing.
And how has been the student reaction to that? Do you think that they are a little bit nostalgic for some of those earlier ways of doing things, or do they embrace the digital element?
I think they absolutely embrace it because they're, for the most part, born into it. They're swimming in that water already, you know? So it's easier for them than it would be for somebody coming from the other side of it. So I use Photoshop a little bit. I'm not really a digital artist, and it's not what I teach, but I use it for editing, that sort of thing. A lot of them prefer to draw that way, and it's a bit of a climb to get more traditional charcoal on paper skills, but once they learn that, you can transfer it to the digital, you know, as well.
And so your particular demographic are students who love the creative arts.
Right.
What happens when you get that student who's taking it as an elective? How do you get them engaged and excited?
They usually just are without too much trouble, which is really kind of nice. Drawing classes are something that anybody can walk in and take, and there's no prerequisite for it. And most of the students seem to be able to draw pretty well when they come in, and they know they want to go in that direction. Sometimes it's about half and half, though, depending on the semester, of students that don't think they can draw well, but they have an interest in it. So usually if they're taking the class, then it's easy enough for me to get the information to them, and they just have to want it. They just have to want to do it, to spend the time with it, you know.
And I know that in prior years there have been competitions, different opportunities for graphic design and art students to showcase their work and also represent Georgia Highlands College. Have you had any opportunities in the last couple of months to present those opportunities to students?
We just have one that I'm about to present to them, so they may hear about it here first.
Exclusive.
on making some artwork for Mike Hobbs' office, for the president's office. It's something that Jessica Lindbergh came up with, our Dean of Humanities. The idea behind the project is to get students to work with a client directly to make artwork for a particular purpose. Even if you work for yourself as an artist and you kind of hang out your shingle, so to speak, and say, you know, here's what I do, you've always got clients, you're always working for someone, and so you have to know how to navigate that, you know. It's not just about what you want to do, but it's also what the client wants and needs. And yeah, all of that.
And so will that center more on academia? Will it center more on bringing Rome maybe to the president's office? Any ideas?
So the way that, this will be the second time that we've done this sort of project. Last year it went to different office. We asked them, what do you want? You know, here's kind of the size that we're accustomed to working with in the classroom, and what would you like to see? You know, so he said first year college students, or first generation college students is a big thing for him. And of course that applies to a lot of Georgia Highlands College students anyway. So he said school colors were a preference, so we're looking at a particular color scheme and a particular subject matter, and then I'm just going to kind of give them a couple of other guardrails and just leave it to them.
And let them really go.
Yeah.
Lean into that. That is a wonderful opportunity for our students to really highlight what they're being taught in the classroom, but then also a larger picture here to represent the institution.
What do you do with that? Yeah.
Exactly. And I know in some prior years there have been opportunities for them to create Christmas cards on behalf of the institution. Some of the artist works will also end up in the hallways of some of our different campus locations. As a professor, that has to be exciting for you.
It is. Yeah.
Have you had any of your former students move on to larger projects that you can share with us?
Not that I can think of at the moment. I'm sure that there have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say in the next maybe 10 years or so, would that be something that as you look back then at a 25-year career, I would definitely think you would have students probably coming back to you and thanking you for those opportunities that you provided them in class. So let's talk a little bit more about maybe the future and what that looks like for both you and your wife. Anything that you are yearning to do that you have not had the opportunity to do within the art world, the music world, any combination? Travel more, I guess. I've always liked travel. My wife does as well. She grew up traveling because her mother was a flight attendant, so they got to go easily to a lot of other places.
But I love to travel and see the different things that are out there visually. I'd love to go to Istanbul because there's such a long-term visual explosion there, of all kinds of different traditions and colors and line work and all of that. And Morocco as well really kind of appeals to me, the Moroccan rugs and things like that. But in general, just traveling and seeing things, is really a big
An
thing for
artist's
me.
dream, right?
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
able to pull
Yeah.
from the realities in which you're experiencing.
Right.
Well, that is wonderful that you have some ideas about what you want to do upcoming. As we kind of transition into our next topic, let's talk a little bit about how the community can get involved in culture. I think that's one of the great things about Rome. You mentioned there's a lot to do, there are people to hang out with. What are some ways that we could bring even more culture to the city of Rome?
Inviting it is one thing. Rome, I love Rome. There's always something going on, but it can be a little insular at times. And I think just always keeping kind of an outreach to invite people who are doing interesting things to wherever we can have them do those things.
And at Kingfisher, it sounds like that's exactly what you guys are hoping
Right.
to do, to continue to
Right.
draw and attract that crowd.
It helps. It helps also for local musicians and local artists to see what other people are doing. And if you don't have to go to Atlanta or Birmingham or Chattanooga to see it, if it comes to you, then there's a much greater chance that you're going to engage with it. And I know just from I have a studio space in the gallery, so I often help hang the shows, and I get to see the work on a regular basis when I'm in there working. So I get inspiration constantly from the work of other artists that is on the wall, and I think, oh, that's a really nice color scheme, or maybe I can try painting in that size. So really just kind of sharing space with different things that are going on and trying to make a place for that to happen is a big deal.
And so having it first, then it will come, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. We're going to continue our conversation here with Russell. Please come back to the GHC Faculty Lounge.
I know you've had your moments of doubt and struggle, and I'm here to say I'm proud of you.
And although each one of us may take a different path, may we look back upon today as the moment we stepped into a larger world, a greater world.
You will pass this way but once. Do it right.
If ever there was a time to follow your passion and do something that matters to you, now is certainly that time.
Welcome back to the GHC Faculty Lounge. I'm Travice Baldwin-Obas, and we are back with Professor Russell Cook. Russell, welcome back.
Well,
we
thanks.
want to continue our conversation. We've talked a little bit about what you do in the art world. Let's talk a little bit about your music.
Okay.
So can you tell us a little bit about the types of music that you're involved in, any upcoming shows?
Yeah. So I'll start at the beginning, right? I started singing in church when I was 4. My mother was the church piano player, and she still is. My grandmother also played piano and sang. So I've been a musician for all my life, seriously or not. And that's how I met my wife, actually. I showed up to play mandolin in her band, and we've been together. I actually have that on audio tape.
Oh, I
our first
love
meeting,
that.
me walking up the steps saying, "Hi, my name's Russell," all that, which was
Very
kind of
cool.
neat. Which was in 1997, so it's been a while. But she and I have had a band called Little Country Giants for going on 20 years or so. We've got about 6 albums of original music, and it's kind of based in folk, bluegrass, singer-songwriter type stuff. We're both songwriters, a lot of harmony singing, and she has taken a hiatus from playing live for the past few years. So recently I've been playing with what has turned into an improvisational rock band, Russell Cook and the Sweet Teeth. It's a trio, 2 guitars and drums. We didn't have a bass player because I expect her to play bass at some point. But now it's its own thing. We've got an album coming out early summer, I guess, no particular release date, but coming up soon with some dates to back that up. I think we've got 10 songs of mostly original music, but with some traditional songs as well, old fiddle tunes, banjo tunes, filtered through newer instrumentation and sensibilities and all of that.
And when and where do you think the concerts will happen? Where can people come and see you?
Well, right now we've got the only two that we have lined up that I can think of are in Decatur and in Athens at Waller's on April 15th and at Hendershots in Athens on April 22nd. Playing with Adam Klein, who has a CD release, and we're opening for him.
Okay.
And then Little Country Giants is playing coming up fairly soon at Reinhardt College for a Bluegrass Festival there. I'm not sure of the date off the top of my head, but that's in the next month or so, I think.
Wonderful. Are there any other music festivals that Rome is privy to, or things that people can go check out the band, perhaps?
Finsterfest is an arts festival with music. I'm on the board at Howard Finster's Paradise Garden, which is a folk art environment. If people are unfamiliar with it, it's world class. They get visitors regularly from Japan and Australia and all over the place, and some from locally as well. But Howard Finster was a huge influence on me as an artist when I was in middle school. My art teacher directed me out there, sent me out there to see Howard's work, and I met him. I didn't realize how unusual that kind of folk art was until I got to art school, So Finsterfest is a benefit for Paradise Garden, which is about 4 acres of kind of backyard paradise is what he intended for it to be. So each year we invite around 60 folk artists, mostly self-taught or outsider is one kind of current and fading term for people who have not been to art school, basically. So they have art booths there. There's music on a couple of stages for a couple of days, and that is late September. So that's always something to look forward to. And that's in Somerville, Georgia, just right up the road.
That's not far at all.
No, and we draw people from all over for that.
And do you have any desire to make the band any bigger, or?
A 3-piece works really well for the Sweet Teeth. We've had numerous offers for bass players, but we've kind of settled into a 3-legged approach. It's kind of like a 3-legged stool. Take anything away and it all falls apart. So that seems to be working for us because it's not easy and it keeps us on our toes the whole time. And of course it started with just me playing my songs and the guys playing accompaniment, but fairly quickly it kind of merged into more of a free-form improvisation-based band. So we still have songs, but we try and depart from them and see how far we can go without losing the audience, which is a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely.
And when I paint, I take the same sort of improvisational approach. So I'm finally able to kind of merge those two things.
I was going to ask, are you able to merge those two passions?
Yeah. And of course, I still like traditional folk music. We still play some old fiddle tunes and banjo tunes and all that with a contemporary approach. But I think you can always take the tradition that's there because people it still has a lot of weight to it, and there's a reason that people go back to older songs and older traditions and bring them forward. The stuff that you bring forward is the stuff you want to keep. There's always plenty of stuff you can leave behind, but you can find that thread of continuity and add yourself to that conversation. So I think that's a really important thing with kind of carrying things forward from the past and making it feel fresh and current at the same time.
So speaking of the past, you're a storyteller by nature.
Yeah.
You think about it in the context of the art, but also in the music. What would be one thing, past or present, that you would say would be indicative if we were to say Russell Cook in 5 words, let's say? How would you be described?
Creative, empathetic. I've just got 2. I'll go with those.
Go with 2. If you don't need the third.
I really think that if you're a participant in the world and you just keep track of what's going on around you, then you're kind of a filter for that. So whatever else you put out creatively is affected by what goes on. Keep your eyes and ears open, all of that. And you're sort of, if not a conduit, something that is able to engage with the world and both kind of be your own person at the same time, And
I'm sure that that's something you're able to also showcase to students. They're in their first couple of years or semesters of college. They're still trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. And I'm sure being able to know that not only do you teach the concepts, but you also live them as well. And there's something dynamic about that, being able to marry the passion of those 2 things, but then also being able to showcase that to students.
I think so.
Do you foresee, like, in the future, thinking about Georgia Highlands or even any other institution, will there ever be a fusion of graphic design, art, music in that capacity that you've just described? Is there a way to
Maybe.
teach that?
I think that there is, and some schools and some programs are a little more integrated than others as far as those approaches go. But to me, it's all kind of similar. It comes from the same place. What really matters, and I think this is important for students to know, is practice, and make practice a habit, because you can get inspiration, and the best things are inspired, but it's not always there. But you have to be ready for it. So if you've got no chops, if you've got no skills, that you're working with, then when the inspiration hits, you just have an idea and it doesn't go anywhere. But if you're in the habit of making work, artistically, visually, musically, any way, writing, whatever it is, then if you've got things in place habit-wise, then you're able to grab what is there and do something with it. If not, it might slide by. But just being able to be working constantly so that you are able to grab something when it comes along, I think is important. So you can really lean that in any direction as far as the form goes, the materials go, it all kind of works in the same way.
Would you say from now and thinking about 15 years ago when you taught your first class, would you say it's easier now or was it easier then?
It's easier now, although there's a lot of stuff I didn't know then, and a lot of stuff I don't know now too, right? Everything changes constantly. But I'm much more comfortable with it now. When I first stood in front of an art appreciation class, nothing prepared me for that. I'd not taught before, and I started with a class. And as soon as I projected images up on the wall, I was like, oh, I know what to say about that, right? And I figured it out very quickly. But I think I've kind of settled into being much more comfortable with that process, and I'm able to read the students a lot more, and yeah.
And for the students who are thinking about a career in art in whatever capacity, what would you tell them?
You got to hustle. I mean, really. Nobody's going to knock on your door and say, do you have any good paintings in there? You have to find them, and the way that you do that is, well, there's a good piece of paper, this means piece of paper, that I saw and have printed out for a lot of my students ever since. It's pretty well known in the art world. It's John Cage's 10 Rules for Students and Artists and everybody else, basically. And as I understand it, didn't actually come from him. He got it from a nun that taught him at some point in school. But it's really, really good advice, like go to everything. It's the people that do everything all the time that get things done. Don't just sit there and expect things to come to you. Go make it happen, right? And that sort of thing, just really sort of being engaged. If you're done with your work, don't just sit there. Do something else and try in a different way. There is no perfect. There is only better. And sometimes the things that you thought were great might not be. Sometimes you thought things weren't great, and they are. So just kind of practice, habit, working at it, I think, gets you where you want to be.
And would you say that creativity is objective or subjective, in your opinion? Or could it be both?
I think it's both. Yeah.
And I found that challenging teaching communication sometimes to students with that same adage. There's really no such thing as perfect. You improve. You try to meet the needs of that particular audience at the time, and you do your best, but you constantly are learning along the way. And what's so interesting when I think about the things that you've talked about, so the art, the graphic design, the music, infusing all of those together really makes you the individual that you are.
Right.
So if somebody were looking to you for inspiration, what would you tell them?
Get to work. Yeah. There's some quote by, I don't know, Paul McCartney or Chuck Close or Picasso, that says inspiration is for amateurs. Everybody else just gets up and goes to work. And
powerful.
I thoroughly believe that. You can sit around and wait for it to happen, and it may, but it's what happens next, and it's the next thing and the next thing that actually makes it work.
Because looking at you, you are so accomplished, and it seems like you have put that very quote to the test. You've made sure that you've remained open for opportunities. When they presented themselves, you followed through, but you've always had that threshold of who you are at your core.
Yeah.
And I hope that resonates with a lot of people who are watching our program, that you can have the talent, you can have the inspiration, but you also have to have the follow through.
You do,
when
yeah.
it comes to that.
Yeah, if you don't do anything with it, it could be there and nobody's going to know. So
Right.
you have to use it.
Okay. Well, we are looking forward to all of the things that you're going to continue to do in Rome. You and your wife have continued success with the Kingfisher Gallery. Remind our audience once again what things you have going on.
Maya DeVitri show at Kingfisher on April 28th, which ought to be really good. I've got a solo show up that's kind of an unusual one for me, up through the 29th. I think it says 22nd on the window, but the show will be up through the 29th. And I've got a new album coming out of mostly original music and traditional songs sometime early summer. And it'll be on vinyl too, which I'm excited about.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah.
Exciting. And don't forget, you've got student publications and things that are also happening. So a lot going on, Professor Russell Cook here. We want to thank him for being a guest on our program this afternoon. Please go check out all of the events scheduled at the Kingfisher Gallery, and we hope to see you next time.